Imagine a large community suddenly inherits a massive plot of fertile land and raw materials. Everyone rushes in to claim their share, but there are no boundary lines, no schedules for harvesting, and no way to settle disputes. The result is chaos. To actually use those resources, the community has to build a system to write rules, enforce them, and guarantee everyone's safety. They have to form a functioning government. But here is the catch. For a government to maintain order, it needs the authority to tell people what to do, collect their resources, and punish them if they break the rules. Giving any group that much power is inherently dangerous. Once the machinery of the state is built, how is its authority assigned? What happens when you concentrate that command in a single ruler versus a small elite or the entire population? Every society in history has had to wrestle with the exact same engineering problem: how to build an authority strong enough to protect its citizens, but distributed enough that it doesn't eventually oppress them. On one extreme end of the power spectrum, authority is entirely concentrated. In an absolute monarchy, like Saudi Arabia, a single ruler holds total control. The monarch's word is the ultimate, unquestionable law, managing everything from the courts to the military. But the title of monarch doesn't always mean absolute control. In a constitutional monarchy, the laws of the nation actively restrict what the king or queen can legally do. Under this system, the actual work of governance is handled by elected officials. Rulers like Emperor Naruhito of Japan occupy a ceremonial role, holding limited to no political power. When concentrated power is maintained by force rather than royal lineage, you get a dictatorship. Here, single-party or single-person control is enforced through a massive secret police presence, strict military force, and a complete monopoly on the media. Authority can also be hoarded by a small, exclusive group. In an oligarchy, a wealthy or well-connected elite controls the state for their own financial benefit. In a theocracy, like Vatican City, the state is governed entirely by religious law and spiritual leaders. The structural flaw shared by all of these concentrated systems is a complete lack of accountability. If the leadership makes decisions that devastate the economy or strip away basic freedoms, the public has no legal mechanism to replace them. To fix that flaw, you have to shift power to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. You have to design a democracy, a system meaning quite literally, rule by the people. A modern democratic system requires 3 baseline conditions to function. All adult citizens must have the right to vote. Everyone must be treated equally before the law, regardless of their background, and the state must guarantee fundamental rights, like the freedom to speak and protest. The earliest version of this was direct democracy, pioneered in ancient Athens. In this model, there were no politicians. Every eligible citizen personally participated in the assembly, casting a vote on every single law and major administrative decision. Having millions of people vote on daily tasks is physically impossible today. Instead, modern populations use representative democracy. The public hires elected officials to debate and make complex legal decisions on their behalf. As nations scaled up to millions of citizens, this representative model became the only practical way to distribute power without grinding the day-to-day operations of the country to a halt. But hiring a small group of people to run a country brings us right back to our original problem. If you give a few elected officials the power to make the rules, what stops them from rewriting those rules to stay in power forever? This diagram illustrates the architecture of checks and balances. To prevent a slide back into a dictatorship, democracies like India divide the central weight of national authority across 3 distinct branches of government. The first branch is the legislature, which in India is the parliament. Their specific job is to debate, write, and amend the national rulebook. The second branch is the executive, led by the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. They do not write the laws. Instead, they run the daily administration and implement the rules the legislature wrote. The third branch is the judiciary, which includes the Supreme Court. They act as the independent referee, interpreting the laws and ensuring that neither of the other branches violates the Constitution. These 3 branches are locked in a continuous tug-of-war. If the legislature passes an unconstitutional law, the judiciary can strike it down. If the executive makes a misstep, the legislature can hold them accountable. This dynamic tension forces the branches to actively restrict one another. By pitting different factions of power against each other, the entire nation remains stable and accountable.
This concept of distributed power has deep historical roots. In ancient India, the VII Mahajanapada practiced collective decision-making, and the 10th century Chola period featured sophisticated local elections where officials could be instantly dismissed for corruption. Despite thousands of years of evolution, modern democracy is highly fragile. It is an active engineering project, not a permanent guarantee. The system faces constant internal threats: unchecked political corruption, massive wealth disparities, and the loss of independent media quietly erode the foundations of the state. Looking back at our structural diagram, if the independent judiciary is weakened or the public's flow of information is manipulated, the system of checks and balances fails. The structure loses its tension and leans back toward an oligarchy. To prevent this, a democracy relies entirely on its citizens. The public has to recognize these structural threats, stay informed, and actively participate in elections to correct the balance. The ultimate check on authority isn't a specific government branch or a written document. It is an engaged public that refuses to let the system operate in the dark, forcing its leaders to answer to the people they serve.